What is good, peeps? What's up, old guy? How you doing, friend? Getting set up here. Getting it set up. Coming on cam in a second. Just getting set up here. Hope you're doing well. Happy Tuesday. What is good? What is up? Sorry, it was paused there for a second. It didn't start. What is up? What is up, friends? Appreciate everyone tuning in. Let's go. We are here. Do some more Robe reading. Been editing past streams and been clipping different readings I've done. Really enjoying these, and gonna do a little photo video shoot here with the robe, and get some thumbnails for YouTube before I start posting those. But these have been a delight, and we're gonna keep the spooky season is coming up. The 23rd is the official start of fall. But we're started early because I have a lot of spooky stories, and yeah, so I know that we will need a lot of time to get through a lot of these. So here we are. I'm gonna use just an old thumbnail right now, just to get it up there. Save that. Boom. But yeah, I'm excited to do this reading tonight. If you follow at Bleace Art on Twitter, I did kind of tease what I would be reading tonight, and it's probably my favorite chapter. Definitely like top 5 favorite chapters in the Harry Potter series, and it was left out of the movie. I think it was a little too weird probably to put that on screen, but Stories on the Grill, yeah. And so this is a chapter that is not in the books, and it just speaks to what more you get out of reading, especially, and I've talked about it before, I love books that are movies that are based on books, and just reading the book, watching the movie, and accepting the movie is different. It's going to be different 99.99% of the time. Things will change. Things have to get cut, and this is just an example of that, of pretty much a whole chapter getting cut, and a whole dream sequence that's not in the film. And it's one that lingers with me, and I have after reading these books, and it can really stick with you, like the emotion on some of them. And as a creative, I love it because I just let my mind like run in that in those scenes. And when you fully immerse yourself in that and you accompany that with writing down dreams, like you can have some like profound experiences. And I've had one of those with this chapter, and that's why it's one of my favorites, is that I actually had a dream, like I was in this world after reading this, like, and the dream just magnified like the feeling of this sequence. And it was just a profound moment. I've had that with other films and stuff as well, and I'll definitely talk about those when they come up. As a creative, I love remembering dreams and writing the dreams down. I just implore everyone to just write as much as possible. There's just so much, to not be afraid of it. Dive into it. Just dive into it, man. You never know. People are like, oh, I had nightmares. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. Like I love nightmares. Like I'm that kind of weirdo. Like, let's go. Like I truly have no fear. What will happen will happen. I have always been that way. I was a daredevil when I was a kid. I would just try anything. I truly just kind of lived without that fear of repercussion, broken many bones, many stories, but that's just how, my grandpa used to say, what's the worst that could happen? You die. And then he would laugh. And he said that as I rode a horse for the first time. He's like, what's the worst that could happen? You die. And he slapped it in the ass, and I fell off, and he went over there laughing his ass off. And he said, honey, there ain't a cowboy that's rode that ain't been throwed. Get back on that damn horse. And that has applied to so many things in my life, of you just keep getting knocked down, but as long as you didn't die, get back up on that horse, whatever that horse may be. You get back up on it. And I was like 10 years old 11 years old at the time that happened. Just turned 11. It was that summer, 2001. And I was really learning how to ride on my own, and it has just that kind of mentality. And he lived that way too. He was an iron worker for 25 years. And if you don't know about iron work, you have to be a daredevil yourself. And I have a really cool picture of him on the crane. They used to just like put the crane all the way up at the top and like swing on it. It's just insane stuff. And you're just like up there on beams, and it was an iron worker in Detroit during the boom. Like that was the job. So he imposed that kind of mentality, for better or worse. I didn't take everything, because he definitely came from a different age, I will just say. Very, very tough. And but he had a kind side too, and I definitely implore that, and to be kind, wherever you can be, just be kind to others. He was very tough, but that mentality, what's the worst that can happen? And when you ask that, you can also ask, what's the best that can happen? You dive into that. People have these fears and anxieties of these nightmares, and no one knows you better than your subconscious there. So you can have some profound moments. And I just have loved reading, and I've loved writing, and I hope these Robe readings, we can make reading cool in 2023. We can make writing cool. We can make expressing yourself cool. It's okay. We, all have our own vulnerabilities, and if you can recognize that in others and respect them for it, and realize that we all kind of have our own limitations, but together we put together this puzzle piece, and we make a pretty cool picture together. And let me reply to this before getting started here, but appreciate everyone tuning in right away. That's awesome. Love to see it. Old guy Money Morrison in here. Colorful. Appreciate everyone tuning in and just hanging out, you know. It's really awesome. Hey, just saw your tweet. Let's go. Alright, time for the awkward turtle thumbnail picture while I'm live, because I'm always running late, but I'm always on time. Always late, but always on time, you know? Can you feel that? Bleace art. Bleace art. Gotta get it right. Bleace art on all socials. Bedtime Stories with yours truly. Bedtime. Uno word. Whatever. Bump. Bump, bump, bump. It is Uno word. And yeah, shout out Lo-Fi Girl. Sorry, just give me a second here. We gotta be in front of the camera, behind the camera, and everything in between. Living in dreams. What is in between? Yeah, we're getting ready for spooky season 23. Spooky season 23. And this is a different Lo-Fi Girl. This is the Beats to Sleep and Chill to, which I felt was more fitting. Which I thought was more fitting for this mood. Bedtime Stories. Whoa, colorful. Being mean to me. This is who you're being mean to. Appreciate all the love and the support, colorful. Boom. All right. And yeah, going to be putting these on the YouTube channel as well, so subscribe there. Putting out a lot of content on there, shorts and long form content as well, so appreciate the support on there. Free to subscribe. And yeah, I gonna be doing this photo video shoot with colorful Carol. Gonna be doing it, so hope to get some cool shots in this robe. And getting my hair cut on Thursday, so we'll look right. Trying to still grow out the hair, trying to get it to a certain place that I have in my mind. It's taken longer than I thought. I've tried to do this before of growing it out, and I grow impatient with it. I'm like, okay, but this time I'm trying to stick with it, give it time. But yeah. And maybe we'll do a Bleace reading, but I want to do my favorite right here. Let's pull it up for a quick sec. My favorite chapter from all the series. I think the 5th book is my... No, the 6th book is my favorite, but the 5th movie is my favorite, just because of the acting in that is so good. But the 6th book is my favorite because of all of the dream sequences. And the 6th book was heavily influential for me writing Bleace. And I've said before, like, a lot of the books that I have, like, not only have I read once, I refer to them often. Like, I really cherish my books and reference them all the time when I'm writing, especially putting these novels together. But when I'm writing, you're only as good of a writer as you are a reader. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It's kind of like maybe being a streamer and like watching other streamers. I like to watch other streamers. So it's kind of in that vein. But yeah. And this being my favorite book of them all. The first one obviously has sentimental value. It was the first one that broke the ice, and I was 8 years old encountering that book, 1998. It's giving my age here, but yeah. This is chapter 10, The House of Gaunt. And I'll turn this down so you can... All right. Oh, snap, we back. All right, you're back just in time. Chapter 10 from book 6, The Half-Blood Prince. And like, it's kind of like the dream sequences where they look in. Just so good. And I think we've passed it. And it's also the book where Dumbledore dies at the end. Spoiler, but if you haven't already, you still got to get through six movies and books to actually mean something. Chapter 10, The House of Gaunt. Let me drink some tea here. Honey's good for the throat. I love our gallery wall. It's good vibes. Perfect for the stream. Got Kid Cudi in there, Jim Morrison. Got the Telluride Film Festival right above my head there. Got the Bleace piece. Trying to get my sister's piece in here that she painted. But there's only so much we can get on screen. We got the film projector. We obviously got Baby Yoda, and Baby Yoda's got another alien. There's another alien there. Another alien. Yep. Takashi Murakami. Yeah. It's a solid wall. Alright, we're just diving right into here. This is Harry Potter. If you don't know it, alright, then I implore you to go watch the movies at least. Some great stuff. Great directors, and cinematography in there. Might be a little dated now, but for its time was really good. I know now J.K. Rowling is controversial. Won't get into that. Sticking just to the art here. Not defending that in any way. Won't get into that either side. Just but yeah, writing. For the rest of the week's potions lessons, Harry continued to follow the Half-Blood Prince's instructions, wherever they deviated from the Labadius Borages, with the result that by their fourth lesson, Slughorn was raving about Harry's abilities, saying that he had rarely taught anyone so talented. Neither Ron or Hermione was delighted by this. Although Harry had offered to share his book with both of them, Ron had more difficulty deciphering the handwriting that Harry did, and could not keep asking Harry to read aloud, or it might look suspicious. Hermione, meanwhile, was resolutely plowing on with what she called the official instructions, but becoming increasingly bad-tempered as they yielded poorer results than the prince's. Harry wondered vaguely who the half-blood prince had been, although the amount of homework they had been given prevented him from reading the whole of his copy of Advanced Potion Making. He had skimmed through it sufficiently to see that there was barely a page on which the prince had not made additional notes, not all of them concerned with potion making. Here and there were directions for what looked like spells that the prince had made up himself. Or herself, said Hermione irritably, overhearing Harry pointing some of these out to Ron in the common room on Saturday evening. It might have been a girl. I think the handwriting looks more like a girl's than a boy's. The half-blood prince, he was called, Harry said. How many girls have been princes? Hermione seemed to have no answer to this. She merely scowled and twitched her essay on the principles of rematerialization away from Ron, who was trying to read it upside down. Harry looked at his watch and hurriedly put on the old copy of Advanced Potion Making back into his bag. It's 5 to 8. I better go. I'll be late for Dumbledore. Oh, gasped Hermione, looking up at once. Good luck. We'll wait up. We want to hear what he teaches you. Hope it goes okay, said Ron, and the pair of them watched Harry leave through the portrait hole. Harry proceeded through deserted corridors, though he had to step hastily behind a statue when Professor Trelawney appeared around a corner, muttering to herself as she shuffled a pack of dirty-looking playing cards, reading them as she walked. 2 of spades, conflict, she murmured, as she passed the place where Harry crouched hidden. 7 of spades, an ill omen. 10 of spades, violence. Knave of spades, a dark young man, possibly troubled, one who dislikes the questioner. She stopped dead, right on the other side of Harry's statue. Well, that can't be right, she said, annoyed, and Harry heard her reshuffling vigorously as she set off again, leaving nothing but a whiff of cooking sherry behind her. Harry waited until he was quite sure she had gone, then hurried off again until he reached the spot in the 7th floor corridor where a single gargoyle stood against the wall. Acid pops, said Harry, and the gargoyle leapt aside. The wall behind it slid apart, and a moving spiral stone staircase was revealed, onto which Harry stepped, so that he was carried in smooth circles up to the door with a brass knocker that led to Dumbledore's office. Harry knocked. Come in, said Dumbledore's voice. Good evening, sir, said Harry, walking into the headmaster's office. Ah, good evening, Harry. Sit down, said Dumbledore, smiling. I hope you've had an enjoyable first week back at school. Yes, thanks, sir, said Harry. You must have been busy. A detention under your belt already? Began Harry awkwardly, but Dumbledore did not look too stern. I've arranged with Professor Snape that you will do your detention next Saturday instead. Right, said Harry, who had more pressing matters on his mind than Snape's detention. Now looked around surreptitiously for some indication of what Dumbledore was planning to do with him this evening. The circular office looked just as it always did. The delicate silver instruments stood on spindle-legged tables, puffing smoke and whirring. Portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses dozed in their frames, and Dumbledore's magnificent phoenix, Fawkes, stood on his perch behind the door, watching Harry with bright interest. It did not even look as though Dumbledore had cleared a space for dueling practice. "So, Harry," said Dumbledore, in a business-like voice, "you have been wondering, I am sure, what I have planned for you during these, for want of a better word, lessons." "Yes, sir. Well, I have decided that it is time. Now that you know what prompted Lord Voldemort to try and kill you 15 years ago, for you to be given certain information." There was a pause. "You said at the end of last term you were going to tell me everything," said Harry. It was hard to keep a note of accusation from his voice. "Sir," he added. "And so I did," said Dumbledore placidly. "I told you everything I know. From this point forth, we shall be leaving the firm foundation of fact and journeying together through the murky marshes of memory into thickets of wildest guesswork. From here on in, Harry, I may be as woefully wrong as Humphrey Belcher, who believed the time was ripe for a cheese cauldron." "But you think you're right?" said Harry. "Naturally I do. But, as I have already proven to you, I make mistakes, like the next man. In fact, being, forgive me, rather cleverer than most men, my mistakes tend to be correspondingly huger." "Sir," said Harry tentatively, "does what you're going to tell me have anything to do with the prophecy? Will it help me survive?" "It has a very great deal to do with the prophecy," said Dumbledore, as casually as if Harry had asked him about the next day's weather. "And I certainly hope that it will help you to survive." Dumbledore got to his feet and walked around the desk, past Harry, who turned eagerly in his seat to watch Dumbledore bending over the cabinet beside the door. When Dumbledore straightened up, he was holding a familiar shallow stone basin etched with odd markings around its rim. He placed the pensieve on the desk in front of Harry. "You looked worried." Harry had indeed been eyeing the pensieve with some apprehension. His previous experiences with the odd device that stored and revealed thoughts and memories, though highly instructive, had also been uncomfortable. The last time had disturbed its contents. Let's go to this. His previous experiences with the odd device that stored and revealed thoughts and memories, though highly instructive, had also been uncomfortable. The last time he had disturbed its contents, he had seen much more than he would have wished. But Dumbledore was smiling. "This time, you enter the pensieve with me, and even more unusually, with permission." "Where are we going, sir?" "For a trip down Bob Ogden's memory lane," said Dumbledore, pulling from his pocket a crystal bottle containing a swirling, silvery white substance. Who was Bob Ogden? "He was employed by the Department of Magical Law Enforcement," said Dumbledore. "He died some years ago, but not before I had tracked him down and persuaded him to confide these recollections to me. We are about to accompany him on a visit he made in the course of his duties. If you will stand, Harry." But Dumbledore was having difficulty pulling out the stopper of the crystal bottle. His injured hand seemed stiff and painful. Shall I, sir?" "No matter, Harry." Dumbledore pointed his wand at the bottle, and the cork flew out. "Sir, how did you injure your hand?" Harry asked again, looking at the blackened fingers with a mixture of revulsion and pity. "Now is not the moment for that story, Harry. Not yet. We have an appointment with Bob Ogden." Dumbledore tipped the silvery contents of the bottle into the pensieve, where they swirled and shimmered, neither liquid nor gas. "After you," said Dumbledore, gesturing toward the bowl. Harry bent forward, took a deep breath, and plunged his face into the silvery substance. He felt his feet leave the office floor. He was falling through whirling darkness, and then, quite suddenly, he was blinking in dazzling sunlight. Before his eyes had adjusted, Dumbledore landed beside him. They were standing in a country lane bordered by high, tangled hedgerows, beneath a summer sky as bright and blue as a forget-me-not. Some 10 feet in front of them stood a short, plump man, wearing enormously thick glasses that reduced his eyes to mole-like specks. He was reading a wooden signpost that was sticking out of the branches on the left-hand side of the road. Harry knew this must be Ogden. He was the only person in sight. And he was also wearing the strangest assortment of clothes so often chosen by inexperienced wizards trying to look like muggles. In this case, a frock coat and spats over a striped one-piece bathing costume. Before Harry had time to do more than register his bizarre appearance, however, Ogden had set off at a brisk walk down the lane. Dumbledore and Harry followed. As they passed the wooden sign, Harry looked up at its 2 arms. The one, pointing back the way they had come, read, "Great Hangleton, 5 miles. The arm, pointing after Ogden, said, "Little Hangleton, 1 mile. They walked a short way, with nothing to see but the hedgerows, the wide blue sky overhead, and the swishing, frock-coated figure ahead. Then the lane curved to the left and fell away, sloping steeply down a hillside, so that they had a sudden, unexpected view of a whole valley laid out in front of them. Harry could see a village, undoubtedly Little Hangleton, nestled between 2 steep hills, its church and graveyard clearly visible. Across the valley, set on the opposite hillside, was a handsome manor surrounded by a wide expanse of velvety green lawn. Ogden had broken into a reluctant trot due to the steep downward slope. Dumbledore lengthened his stride, and Harry hurried up to keep up. He thought Little Hangleton must be the final destination and wondered, as he had done on the night they had found Slughorn, why they had to approach it from such a distance. He soon discovered that he was mistaken in thinking that they were going to the village, however. The lane curved to the right, and when they rounded the corner, it was to see the very edge of Ogden's frock coat vanishing through a gap in the hedge. Dumbledore and Harry followed him onto a narrow dirt track bordered by higher and wilder hedgerows than those they had left behind. The path was crooked, rocky, and potholed, sloping downhill like the last one, and it seemed to be heading for a patch of dark trees a little below them. Sure enough, the track soon opened up at the copse, and Dumbledore and Harry came to a halt behind Ogden, who had stopped and drawn his wand. Despite the cloudless sky, the old trees ahead cast deep, dark, cool shadows, and it was a few seconds before Harry's eyes discerned the building half hidden amongst the tangle of trunks. It seemed to him a very strange location to choose for a house, or else an odd decision to leave the trees growing nearby, blocking all light and the view of the valley below. He wondered whether it was inhabited. Its walls were mossy, and so many tiles had fallen off the roof that the rafters were visible in places. Nettles grew all around it, their tips reaching the windows, which were tiny and thick with grime. Just as he had concluded that nobody could possibly live there, however, one of the windows was thrown open with a clatter, and a thin trickle of steam or smoke issued from it, as though somebody was cooking. Ogden moved forward quietly, it seemed to Harry rather cautiously. As the dark shadows of the trees slid over him, he stopped again, staring at the front door, to which somebody had nailed a dead snake. Then there was a rustle and a crack, and a man in rags dropped from the nearest tree, landing on his feet right in front of Ogden, who leapt backward so fast he stood on the tails of his frock coat and stumbled. "You're not welcome." The man standing before them had thick hair so matted with dirt it could have been any color. Several of his teeth were missing. His eyes were small and dark and stared in opposite directions. He might have looked comical, but he did not. The effect was frightening, and Harry could not blame Ogden for backing away several more paces before he spoke. Good morning. I'm from the Ministry of Magic." "You're not welcome." I'm sorry, I don't understand you," said Ogden nervously. Harry thought Ogden was being extremely dim. The stranger was making himself very clear, in Harry's opinion, particularly as he was brandishing a wand in one hand and a short and rather bloody knife in the other. "You understand him, I'm sure, Harry," said Dumbledore quietly. "Yes, of course," said Harry, slightly nonplussed. "Why can't Ogden?" But as his eyes found the dead snake on the door again, he suddenly understood. "He's speaking Parseltongue?" "Very good," said Dumbledore, nodding and smiling. The man in rags was now advancing on Ogden, knife in one hand, wand in the other. "Now, look," Ogden began, but too late. There was a bang, and Ogden was on the ground, clutching his nose, while a nasty, yellowish goo squirted from between his fingers. "Morphin!" said a loud voice. An elderly man had come hurrying out of the cottage, banging the door behind him so that the dead snake swung pathetically. This man was shorter than the first, and oddly proportioned. His shoulders were very broad, and his arms overlong, which, with his bright brown eyes, short scrubby hair, and wrinkled face, gave him the look of a powerful, aged monkey. He came to a halt beside the man with the knife, who was now cackling with laughter at the sight of Ogden on the ground. "Ministry, is it?" said the older man, looking down at Ogden. "Correct," said Ogden angrily, dabbing his face. "And you, I take it, are Mr. Gaunt?" "'S right," said Gaunt. "Got you in the face, did he?" "Yes, he did," snapped Ogden. "Should have made your presence known, shouldn't you?" said Gaunt aggressively. "This is private property. Can't just walk in here and expect my son to defend himself, and not expect my son to defend himself." "Defend himself against what? Against what, man?" said Ogden, clambering back to his feet. "Busybodies, intruders, muggles, and filth." Ogden pointed his wand at his nose, which was still issuing large amounts of what looked like yellow pus. And the flow stopped at once. Mr. Gaunt spoke out of the corner of his mouth to Morphin. "Get in the house. Don't argue." This time, ready for it, Harry recognized Parseltongue. Even while he could understand what was being said, he distinguished the weird hissing noise. That was all Ogden could hear. Morphin seemed to be on the point of disagreeing, but when his father cast him a threatening look, he changed his mind, lumbering away to the cottage with an odd rolling gait and slamming the front door behind him so that the snake swung sadly again. "It's your son I'm here to see, Mr. Gaunt," said Ogden as he mopped the last of the pus from the front of his coat. "That was Morphin, wasn't it?" That was Morphin," said the old man indifferently. "Are you pureblood?" he asked, suddenly aggressive. "That's neither here nor there," said Ogden coldly, and Harry felt his respect for Ogden rise. Apparently Gaunt felt rather differently. He squinted into Ogden's face and muttered, in what was clearly supposed to be an offensive tone, "Yo, Annie Root, what is good, friend? We are reading, doing a little live reading here. Appreciate you coming through. Appreciate everyone hanging out here." I'll take a little pause here, but he squinted into Ogden's face and muttered in what was clearly supposed to be an offensive tone, "Now, I come to think about it, I've seen noses like yours down in the village." Let me take a pause, but appreciate you, Annie Root. What day is it there? It is right now, friend. It is Tuesday going into Wednesday. Are you in Wednesday already? You're what, like 10 hours ahead? Must be early for you. But we are reading a chapter from Harry Potter that is one of my favorites and was not in the movies. It was only in the book. Try to focus this. It is only in the book, and it's one of my favorites. I don't doubt it. If your son's been let loose on them, said Ogden, perhaps we could continue this discussion inside. Inside? Yes, Mr. Gaunt, I've already told you. I'm here about Morphin. We sent an owl? I've no use for owls, said Gaunt. I don't open letters. Then you can hardly complain that you get no warning of visitors, said Ogden tartly. I am here following a serious breach of wizarding law, which occurred here in the early hours of this morning. All right, bellowed Gaunt. Come in the bleeding house, then, and much good it'll do ya. The house seemed to contain 3 tiny rooms. 2 doors led off the main room, which served as kitchen and living room combined. Morphin was sitting in a filthy armchair beside the smoking fire, twisting a live adder between his thick fingers and crooning softly at it in parcel tongue. Hissy, hissy, little snaky, slither on the floor. You be good to Morphin, or he'll nail you to the door. There was a scuffling noise in the corner beside the open window, and Harry realized that there was somebody else in the room, a girl whose ragged gray dress was the exact color of the dirty stone wall behind her. She was standing beside a steaming pot on a grimy black stove, and was fiddling around with the shelf of squaddling-looking pots and pans above it. Her hair was lank and dull, and she had a plain, pale, rather heavy face. Her eyes, like her brother's, stared in opposite directions. She looked a little cleaner than the 2 men, but Harry thought he had never seen a more defeated-looking person. My daughter, Merope, said Gaunt grudgingly, as Ogden looked inquiringly toward her. Good morning, said Ogden. She did not answer, but with a frightened glance at her father, turned her back on the room and continued shifting the pots on the shelf behind her. Well, Mr. Gaunt, said Ogden, to get straight to the point, we have reason to believe that your son, Morphin, performed magic in front of a mogul late last night. There was a deafening clang. Merope had dropped one of the pots. Pick it up, Gaunt bellowed at her. That's it. Grub on the floor like some filthy muggle. What's your wand for, you useless sack of muck? Mr. Gaunt, please, said Ogden in a shocked voice, as Merope, who had already picked up the pot, flushed blotchily scarlet, lost her grip on the pot again, drew her wand shakily from her pocket, pointed it at the pot, and muttered a hasty, inaudible spell that caused the pot to shoot across the floor away from her, hit the opposite wall, and crack in 2. Morphin let out a mad cackle of laughter. Gaunt screamed, Mend it, you pointless lump! Mend it! Morp stumbled across the room, but before she had time to raise her wand, Ogden lifted his own and said firmly, Reparo! The pot mended itself instantly. Gaunt looked for a moment as though he was going to shout at Ogden, but seemed to think better of it. Instead, he jeered at his daughter. Lucky the nice men from the ministry's here, isn't it? Perhaps he'll take you off my hands. Perhaps he doesn't mind, dirty squibs. Without looking at anybody or thanking Ogden, Merope picked up the pot and returned it, hands trembling, to its shelf. She then stood quite still, her back against the wall between the filthy window and the stove, as though she wished for nothing more than to sink into the stone and vanish. "Mr. Gaunt," Ogden began, "as I've said, the reason for my visit—" "I heard you the first time," snapped Gaunt. "And so what? Morphin gave a muggle a bit of what was coming to him. What about it then?" "Morphin has broken wizarding law," said Ogden sternly. "Morphin has broken wizarding law," Gaunt imitated Ogden's voice, making it pompous and sing-song. Morphin cackled again. "He taught a filthy muggle a lesson. That's illegal, is it?" "Yes, Ogden, I'm afraid it is." He pulled from an inside pocket a small scroll of parchment and unrolled it. "What's that, then, his sentence?" said Gaunt, his voice rising angrily. "It is a summons to the ministry for a hearing." "Summons? Summons? Who do you think you are, summoning my son anywhere?" "I'm head of the Magical Law Enforcement Squad," said Ogden. "And you think we're scum, do you?" screamed Gaunt, advancing on Ogden now, with a dirty yellow-nailed finger pointing at his chest. "Scum who'll come running when the ministry tells him to. Do you know who you're talking to, you filthy little mudblood, do you?" "I was under the impression that I was speaking to Mr. Gaunt," said Ogden, looking weary, but standing his ground. "That's right," roared Gaunt. For a moment, Harry thought Gaunt was making an obscene hand gesture, but then realized that he was showing Ogden the ugly, black-stoned ring he was wearing on his middle finger, waving it before Ogden's eyes. "See this? See this? Know what it is? Know where it came from? Centuries it's been in our family. That's how far back we go, and pure blood all the way. Know how much I've been offered for this? With the purple coat of arms engraved on the stone?" "I've really no idea," said Ogden, blinking as the ring sailed within an inch of his nose. "And it's quite beside the point, Mr. Gaunt. Your son has committed..." With a howl of rage, Gaunt ran toward his daughter. For a split second, Harry thought he was going to throttle her as his hand flew to her throat. Next moment, he was dragging her toward Ogden by a gold chain around her neck. "See this?" he bellowed at Ogden, shaking a heavy gold locket at him, while Merope spluttered and gasped for breath. I see it, said Ogden hastily. "Slytherins," yelled Gaunt. "Salazar Slytherins. We're his last living descendants. What do you say to that, eh?" "Mr. Gaunt, your daughter," said Ogden in alarm, but Gaunt had already released Merope. She staggered away from him, back to her corner, massaging her neck and gulping for air. "So," said Gaunt triumphantly, as though he had just proved a complicated point beyond all possible dispute. "Don't you go talking to us as if we're dirt on your shoes. Generations of purebloods, wizards all, more than you can say, I don't doubt." And he spat on the floor at Ogden's feet. Morphin cackled again. Merope, huddled beside the window, her head bowed and her face hidden by her lank hair, said nothing. "Mr. Gaunt," said Ogden doggedly, "I am afraid that neither your ancestors nor mine have anything to do with the matter in hand. I am here because of Morphin and the muggle he accosted late last night. Our information," he glanced down at his scroll of parchment, "is that Morphin performed a jinx or hex on the said muggle, causing him to erupt in highly painful hives." Morphin giggled. "Be quiet, boy," snarled Gaunt in Parseltongue, and Morphin fell silent again. "And so what if he did, then?" Gaunt said defiantly to Ogden. "I expect you've wiped the muggle's filthy face clean for him, and his memory to boot." "That's hardly the point, is it, Mr. Gaunt?" said Ogden. this was an unprovoked attack on a defenseless... I had you marked as a muggle lover the moment I saw you, sneered Gaunt, and he spat on the floor again. This discussion is getting us nowhere, said Ogden firmly. It is clear from your son's attitude that he feels no remorse for his actions. He glanced down at his scroll of parchment again. Morphin will attend a hearing on the 14th of September to answer the charges of using magic in front of a muggle and causing harm and distress to that same muggle. Ogden broke off. The jingling, clopping sounds of horses and loud, laughing voices were drifting in through the open window. Apparently, the winding lane to the village passed very close to the copse where the house stood. Gaunt froze, listening, his eyes wide. Morphin hissed and turned his face toward the sounds, his expression hungry. Merope raised her head. Her face, Harry saw, was starkly white. My God, what an eyesore, rang out a girl's voice, as clearly audible through the open window as if she had stood in the room beside them. Couldn't your father have that hovel cleared away, Tom? It's not ours, said a young man's voice. Everything on the other side of the valley belongs to us, but that cottage belongs to an old tramp called Gaunt and his children. The son's quite mad. You should hear some of the stories they tell in the village. The girl laughed. The jingling, clopping noises were growing louder and louder. Morphin made to get out of his armchair. Keep your seat, said his father warningly, in parcel tongue. Tom, said the girl's voice again, now so close they were clearly right beside the house. I might be wrong, but has somebody nailed a snake to that door? Good Lord, you're right, said the man's voice. That'll be the son. I told you, he's not right in the head. Don't look at it, Cecilia, darling. The jingling and clopping sounds were now growing fainter again. Darling, whispered Morphin in parcel tongue, looking at his sister. Darling, he called her, so he wouldn't have you anyway. Merope was so white Harry felt sure she was going to faint. What's that? Said Gaunt sharply, also in parcel tongue, looking from his son to his daughter. What did you say, Morphin? She likes looking at that muggle, said Morphin, a vicious expression on his face as he stared at his sister, who now looked terrified. Always in the garden when he passes, peering through the hedge at him, isn't she? And last night? Merope shook her head jerkily, imploring, but Morphin went on ruthlessly. Hanging out of the window, waiting for him to ride home, wasn't she? Hanging out of the window to look at a muggle? Said Gaunt quietly. All three of the Gaunts seemed to have forgotten Ogden, who was looking both bewildered and irritated at the renewed outbreak of incomprehensible hissing and rasping. Is it true? Said Gaunt in a deadly voice, advancing a step or two toward the terrified girl. My daughter, pure-blooded descendant of Salazar Slytherin, hankering after a filthy, dirt-veined muggle? Merope shook her head frantically, pressing herself into the wall, apparently unable to speak. But I got him, Father, cackled Morphin. I got him as he went by, and he didn't look so pretty with hives all over him, did he, Merope? You disgusting little squib, you filthy little blood traitor, roared Gaunt, losing control, and his hands closed around his daughter's throat. Both Harry and Ogden yelled, "No!" at the same time. Ogden raised his wand and cried, "Reliccio!" Gaunt was thrown backward, away from his daughter. He tripped over a chair and fell flat on his back. With a roar of rage, Morphin leapt out of his chair and ran at Ogden, brandishing his bloody knife and firing hexes indiscriminately from his wand. Ogden ran for his life. Dumbledore indicated that they ought to follow, and Harry obeyed, Merope's screams echoing in his ears. Ogden hurtled up the path and erupted onto the main lane, his arms over his head, where he collided with the glossy chestnut horse ridden by a very handsome dark-haired young man. Both he and the pretty girl riding beside him on a gray horse roared with laughter at the sight of Ogden, who bounced off the horse's flank and set off again, his frock coat flying, covered from head to foot in dust, running pell-mell up the lane. "I think that will do, Harry," said Dumbledore. He took Harry by the elbow and tugged. Next moment, they were both soaring weightlessly through darkness until they landed squarely onto their feet back in Dumbledore's now twilit office. "What happened to the girl in the cottage?" said Harry at once, as Dumbledore lit extra lamps with a flick of his wand. "Merope, or whatever her name was?" "Oh, she survived," said Dumbledore, reseating himself behind his desk and indicating that Harry should sit down too. Ogden apparated back to the ministry and returned with reinforcements within 15 minutes. Morphin and his father attempted to fight, but both were overpowered, removed from the cottage, and subsequently convicted by the Wizengamot. Morphin, who already had a record of Muggle attacks, was sentenced to 3 years in Azkaban. Marvolo, who had just injured several ministry employees in addition to Ogden, received 6 months. "Marvolo?" Harry repeated wonderingly. "That's right," said Dumbledore, smiling in approval. "I am glad to see you keeping up." "That old man was Voldemort's grandfather, yes," said Dumbledore. "Marvolo, his son Morphin, and his daughter Merope were the last of the Gaunts, a very ancient wizarding family, noted for a vein of instability and violence that flourished through the generations due to their habit of marrying their own cousins." You see how dark this chapter is? I think it's one of the darkest chapters in all of the books, and pretty morbid, pretty messed up. Talking about incest, you're talking about purebloods attacking mudbloods, saying that they have dirt in their veins. I was really getting into it. I hope you were too. Due to their habit of marrying their own cousins, lack of sense coupled with a great liking for grandeur meant that the family gold was squandered several generations before Marvolo was born. He, as you saw, was left in squalor and poverty, with a very nasty temper, a fantastic amount of arrogance and pride, and a couple of family heirlooms that he treasured just as much as his son, and rather more than his daughter. "So Merope," said Harry, leaning forward in his chair and staring at Dumbledore. "So Merope was... Sir, does that mean she was Voldemort's mother?" "It does," said Dumbledore. "And it so happens that we also had a glimpse of Voldemort's father. I wonder whether you noticed." "The Muggle Morphin attacked? The man on the horse?" "Very good indeed," said Dumbledore, beaming. "Yes, that was Tom Riddle Sr., the handsome Muggle who used to go riding past the Gaunt cottage, and for whom Merope Gaunt cherished a secret, burning passion." "And they ended up married?" Harry said in disbelief, unable to imagine two people less likely to fall in love. "I think you are forgetting," said Dumbledore, "that Merope was a witch. I do not believe that her magical powers appeared to their best advantage when she was being terrorized by her father. Once Marvolo and Morphin were safely in Azkaban, once she was alone and free for the first time in her life, then I am sure she was able to give full rein to her abilities and to plot her escape from the desperate life she had led for 18 years. Can you not think of any measure Merope could have taken to make Tom Riddle forget his Muggle companion and fall in love with her instead?" The Imperious Curse? Harry suggested. Or a love potion? Very good. Personally, I am inclined to think that she used a love potion. I am sure it would have seemed more romantic to her, and I do not think it would have been very difficult, some hot day when Riddle was riding alone, to persuade him to take a drink of water. In any case, within a few months of the scene we have just witnessed, the village of Little Hangleton enjoyed a tremendous scandal. You can imagine the gossip it caused when the squire's son ran off with the tramp's daughter Merope. But the villager's shock was nothing to Marvellow's. He returned from Azkaban, expecting to find his daughter dutifully awaiting his return with a hot meal ready on his table. Instead, he found a clear inch of dust and her note of farewell, explaining what she had done. From all that I've been able to discover, he never mentioned her name or existence from that time forth. The shock of her desertion may have contributed to his early death, or perhaps he had simply never learned to feed himself. Azkaban had greatly weakened Marvolo, and he did not live to see Morphin return to the cottage. Yeah, so that is chapter 10. That is chapter 10. I hope you enjoy that. It does go on a little bit, but I read the part that I really wanted to read. Just love that chapter for so many reasons, and I've had a couple profound dreams of seeing that house, of that landscape, and it may be mixed with, my own childhood landscape, but I just see like this like yellow scene. I don't know why it's yellow to me, but it is. Like this yellow kind of overlay. And yeah, so that is Voldemort's mother and father. They left it out of the movies. I think it's a great scene. I thought it was powerful and would have loved to see that in there. But alas, that is why we love to read there. But I do appreciate everyone tuning in here and hanging out. It's been great. That one of my all-time favorite chapters right there. That was great. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed that reading. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, Annie Root, thank you for coming through, friend. Old guy, colorful. This was nice little bedtime reading, It's a nice little bedtime reading. Have to do more of these. Like I said, I'm gonna be streaming when I can, when it fits my schedule. I almost went live twice today, but I just felt I would save it for tonight. Do a little bedtime reading. All right, getting it a little bit there. Just making sure the galaxy light's on. But yeah, working on that. We'll be uploading more to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to that at Bleace on YouTube. Also streaming on there. Not every time. It will still be mainly on Twitch. But yeah, stream on YouTube from now and then. It's been great. And getting close to the 21st Do you remember 21st of September? But yeah, we'll be live again. Till next time, appreciate you hanging out. Appreciate everyone who came through. Hope you enjoyed the live reading there, and we'll see you next time. See you next time, friends. Peace out, Cub Scout.